Guam Homeless Coalition, 717. Before we get too backed up, let's keep it going here in the K-Wave News Zoom room. Senator Chris Duenas of the Republican minority is here, and we're kind of just going to dive right into the legislature's drug policy. I'm not even sure what it is.
Let's just start there then.
Yeah,
Does the legislature have a drug-free workplace policy?
Hey, thanks a lot, Chris and Bree, for this opportunity. And just a few seconds here, Frank the Crank, that's really inspiring. Taking on another fight, and our office is going to support you. So we'll figure out how to do that today. But Chris and Bree, great question. In the establishment of this, the standing rules for this 36 Guam legislature, there was included a drug-free workplace policy. It's pretty standard in terms of establishing it, but the reason why I sent out the release and have been proactive from my office perspective is that, from what I understand, there's some conversation with the comptroller establishing the account, finding out who the vendor is going to be, and this whole thing about going through that process. But, our staffs pretty much are in place, and, we didn't do our drug testing like if you were normally hired in the government of Guam. So with all this controversy and a lot of these conversations and inquiries to our office, first of all, let me say that when I hired my staff, I made it very clear our office is a drug-free workplace, and we take taxpayer dollars. We believe they're sacred, and we believe that that we have to live up to the example that we ask government agencies and other organizations to live up to in terms of a drug-free workplace. My staff completely agreed, and they understood that I have a zero tolerance policy. I also have a safe harbor policy. If one of my staff was to come to me and say that I have a problem, I have a drug, alcohol, or any other abuse problem, I will allow them the proper leave and to seek treatment, and then we'll talk about their employment going forward, if they're able to get through their problem. But I just wanted to make this statement that our office is going to lead by example. We're paying for our own test. There will be no government resources used for it. And then what we will do is continue to follow the legislature's program once it's stood up and operational. And also just to put a cap on this point, our drug tests are going to be random. They're not going to we have asked the provider to contact us during normal business hours over the next 10 days and let us know within 1 hour, and we'll be at the facility for testing.
Senator, so you said that this is the policy for the 36th. Do you know offhand if this was also the policy in the 35th and 34th?
I don't know. I wasn't paying close enough attention at that point, other than watching policies coming out of the 35th. I think that'd be a great question for the executive director. But I don't know, and maybe not, because I think this was an adoption within the 36th, but I don't want to go on record saying that it wasn't part of the 35th. But I know that it appeared to be something new in the 36th.
Yeah, because I remember was it last term, Bree?
What?
When they were talking about the constitutionality of.
Right, I think it was Senator James Moylan. He wanted to amend the standing rules.
Yeah, I know that. Yeah, I know that even this conversation, and I wanted to go into this, you guys. I really think that there's a lot of unnecessary, really, I guess I can't call it anything else but bickering between the issues with the court. I really think that the chairwoman and the committee is just trying to get to the bottom of some high-profile, spotlight that's been put on the court. I know there's a lot of excellent employees down there. I've worked with a lot of them in the past, in my world of being in the maritime industry, and I know there's a lot of good folks. But with incidents and a lot of the press around it, I just hope that we can continue to work with the organization, to say that we're just trying to get to the bottom line of things, and it's the people of Guam, that have questions, and it shouldn't just be the port. It should be government-wide, that we constantly revisit our drug-free workplace policies. And a lot of people that are applying for jobs within the government, let's face it, there's a lot of people who want to get into the government, who have worked hard. They have the education, they have the skills, they have everything that they need to do that, and they don't have a record. So they just want to make sure that there's a level playing field. I'm all about second chances, but I think first chances are appropriate too.
How about seventh chances? How do you feel about seventh chances?
Well, I would say that management has to, answer to that at that point.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm not one to basically say what the operational needs are for any organization, but I will say that I would tend to believe that with the list of applicants in the government of Guam, there are plenty of very qualified people that could work for our government, serve our people well, and so I think management has to answer to that. I don't know that would be my choice.
I mean, I agree with you, Senator, that I feel like this whole conversation, I mean, I don't know why you and the other senators are bothering to even explain what you're trying to do. You're trying to do your job. Your job is to have oversight over government agencies. And these government agencies, specifically the port, they're just not staying in their lane. I mean, people are getting attacked for simply raising questions about the drug testing policy. So you don't got to come here and explain what you're trying to do or why you're trying to do it. But yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, I just feel like, with the port being one of the places where the meth is coming in, ask any law enforcement person. There has to be a little more stringent of a standard, maybe, right? But I guess it's good to see that you guys your office is leading by example. But let me ask you this. What about marijuana? So marijuana is legal. If you do a random test,
yeah, so
then how are
we
you going to
talked
address
about that in our office, and my decision at this point, Chris, is to not penalize employees if they test positive for THC, simply because it is a legal substance. And what I want to do with that is basically, if that does come through on a test, what I want to do is I want to make it clear, just like if you can't come into the office drunk, you can't come into the office where you're impaired on any other prescription medicine. You can't work for the people and perform your duties if you are not capable of entering the workplace sober. So what I would do at that point is counsel and say, if obviously this is a legal substance that you're using, I don't know if you're doing it for medicinal reasons or otherwise, but I just want to be clear that I will be paying attention to performance and making sure that it doesn't inhibit your performance and you're not using in the workplace.
Does the legislature's drug-free workplace policy allow for random drug testing?
I don't believe so. That's something that we're doing specifically in our office. The questions that have been forwarded to my office have been, first of all, did you do the traditional entrance into GovGuam service, which I believe every government of Guam job, at least when I was an administrator, every new hire, that is a prerequisite. Prior to finalizing your employment is the clearance of a drug test. I think that would be the first step from what I understand from the policy. And then going forward, I believe it's basically up to the offices. Say, for example, there's reasonable suspicion or the like, I think they could order a test. But yeah, it's pre-employment. From what I understand, it's pretty standard GovGuam policy.
Is random drug testing, just because Rory was talking about the AG's opinion regarding drug testing?
Yeah, so I'm aware of that. I think really what that comes down to, Bree, in our environment, we're the legislature and every office can operate the way they want to. If my employees were upset about the fact that I was administering a random drug test, starting with myself, I want to be clear, this starts from me. I asked the company to test me first on a random basis. So I am not going to ask somebody to do something I won't do myself. The thing is that, I understand the constitutionality, and I'm not trying to go against that AG's opinion, but I think what's very clear, Chris and Bree and Jason, there is that in test designated positions, there's no safe harbor for law enforcement. In a position where you have a critical job, random, I disagree a little bit with Rory's position on this, that requires a very high level of reasonable suspicion. I believe if we hold our officers, our frontline workers and everything else to that policy, that that there has to be an understanding that there is a randomness to the testing to have that kind of teeth, really. But I understand the AG's opinion and I respect it. I think that with our office, it's optional, and I just want to be as transparent as possible. And my staff completely supports my position.
Right on.
All right.
Okay. But let me ask you this, Senator Duenas, because I know that a lot of people want to work with the government of Guam in a capacity, in the jobs where you have to get the drug test as a condition of employment. But there are people who smoke weed out here who will fail that drug test and won't be able to get in. So do you think that we need to revisit any of the laws about drug testing so that we don't punish those people who are smoking marijuana, not on the job, in a responsible way? Because, with the testing with the weed, it's like you could smoke a joint last week, you show up to work today, you drug test me, I'm going to test positive, but it doesn't necessarily mean that I'm stoned or whatever at the time. So is this something you think legislatively you guys should address? Go ahead.
Yeah, so Chris, when the legislation was coming forward, both medicinal and full legalization, this was an issue that was brought up by Department of Administration. I know that Mike Schnepp and some of his other team, I met with them personally, and they said that it is key for them to propose workplace policy and hiring practices policy from DOA on this issue, given the fact that the law has changed. So I think, Chris and Bree, what we should do then now is circle back to DOA, because they are the hiring authority. They are the ones who are going to exercise the discretion. And so when I was talking to Mike before about this, his position was that they should tailor it similar to alcohol policy and other policies. The problematic issue is that when you're dealing with THC and marijuana as a substance, you have a longer period of time in terms of how long that would remain in your system. So I think the issue really is, it's going to be a different policy, but I really think at this point that should emulate from DOA, because they're the HR of the government of Guam, and I don't know any institution that, even if they are an autonomous agency or anything else, I don't know any organization within the government that's not following the DOA rules and regs. So I think we need to bounce that to DOA. And I'm not deflecting, I'm just saying they have to administer it. So it has to be something that they feel is proper and has been vetted through proper authorities.
Well, I appreciate the posture, Senator Duenas, because I see the port response. It's something like, oh, you want us to drug test our people? Well, you're not drug testing your people, so why should we? When it should actually be everybody drug test whoever they got to drug test, right? So thanks.
It's really hard to sit there on the dais of the legislature and wag your finger at anybody when you haven't taken that initiative yourself. So I think that's wrong. I didn't feel as though it was an adversarial conversation to try to ask questions to any government agency about their workplace policy. But I guess other folks from the outside would shake, rightly so, I guess, hey, point finger back to you. So yeah, absolutely. When those kind of things happen, we should step up and demonstrate that we're willing to accept that if you're going to, if we increased our budget by $5 million and cut education, that wouldn't make any sense at all, right? So it's the same thing. If we're going to ask for proper workplace policy, then we should have a very robust policy ourselves.
Thank you, Senator.
Hey, thanks, Chris and Bree and Frank the Crank. Go, man. We're going to figure out how to support you today. So I always appreciate the opportunity, you guys.
See you,
right,
see you, Senator Duenas. 7:31. This is the link. Let's keep it in the Zoom room where we have from the Department of Public Health and Social Services, the Environmental Health Administrator.